Of golf here with me right now, and a writer. We've got a book here, The Big Three and Me, that you wrote yourself.
Great to be here. We always look forward to coming to Augusta. As soon as we leave, we start thinking about coming back.
One could touch the Big Three.
It was just great to watch the three of them play.
They wanted to play like men to beat each other.
We wanted to win. We wanted to be the best.
It's amazing.
They called him the forgotten man of golf, the fourth wheel, the one left out of the Big Three. But to the legends who actually played against him, Billy Casper was unforgettable. Jack Nicklaus feared him most. Arnold Palmer respected him deeply. And the names he admired in return reveal something extraordinary about one of the most underrated champions in history. Who were the 7 players Billy Casper held closest to his heart? And what do these relationships tell us about a man who won 51 times, yet somehow slipped through the cracks of golf history? Let's start with the idol who shaped everything. Ben Hogan was more than Billy Casper's hero. He was his blueprint for greatness. Growing up in San Diego, California, young Billy started playing golf at age 5. By 15, he was caddying at San Diego Country Club when fate delivered a moment that would define his entire career. He met Ben Hogan, not just met him, but was inspired so deeply that he listed Hogan as one of his personal heroes for the rest of his life. This wasn't teenage hero worship that faded with time. Casper made a conscious decision to model his entire on-course persona after Hogan's famously stoic, methodical approach. He had a natural wise guy bent, a personality that could have made him flashy and talkative. He suppressed it. He buried it beneath the same icy discipline that made Hogan a legend. Every shot calculated, every emotion controlled. This was the foundation Casper built his game upon. The relationship between idol and protege came full circle at the 1959 United States Open at Winged Foot. Casper, just 27 years old, entered the final round holding a 3-stroke lead over the 46-year-old Hogan, a 4-time champion. While Hogan faded with a 76 in the final round, Casper's victory became the ultimate validation of everything his idol had taught him. He didn't just beat Ben Hogan, he beat him using Hogan's own doctrine. The most famous decision of that tournament perfectly captured this philosophy. The third hole at Winged Foot was a long, brutally difficult par 3. In all 4 rounds, Casper intentionally laid up in front of the green. 4 times he took his medicine, securing an easy par while others gambled and lost. It was pure Hogan. Eliminate risk. Avoid the big number. Let everyone else beat themselves. When you combined that calculated strategy with what everyone agreed was the best short game of the era, you had a new formula for winning majors. Casper totaled just 114 putts over 72 holes at Winged Foot, 31 one-putts, only 1 3-putt. He had out Hogan himself, proving the Master's methods worked even against the Master. But before we go further, quick question for you. Who do you think was Billy Casper's toughest rival? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you're enjoying this deep dive into golf history, hit that subscribe button. We've got more out-of-bounds stories coming your way. Now, winning 1 major by beating your childhood hero was just the beginning, because the same year Casper claimed his first tour victory, another legend was making his final stand. Cary Middlecoff represented everything Casper needed to overcome. Middlecoff was a former dentist turned World Golf Hall of Famer. 3 major championships, 2 United States Opens, 39 or 40 PGA Tour titles depending on how you count them. He was the dominant force of his generation, and Casper's arrival marked the exact moment that dominance ended. The year 1956 serves as the perfect pivot point. That season, Casper earned his first ever PGA Tour victory at the Labatt Open in Canada. It was the first of 51 wins and the starting gun for his remarkable 16 consecutive season winning streak from 1956 to 1971. Only Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus with 17 season streaks ever did better. But 1956 was also the year Cary Middlecoff won his last major championship, the United States Open at Oak Hill. One career ascending, another concluding. This wasn't a single dramatic showdown, it was a generational transfer of power, the old guard stepping aside as the new wave arrived. Casper had to prove himself in an era of extraordinary depth, competing against multiple generations at once. The symbolic bookend came 10 years later. At the 1966 United States Open, the tournament that would become Casper's most iconic victory, Cary Middlecoff made his final United States Open appearance. The 2-time champion withdrew after the first round. As one champion claimed the trophy that would define his legacy, the champion of the preceding era walked off the stage for the last time. The torch had been passed, but the biggest battles were still ahead, because nothing Billy Casper ever did shook the golf world quite like what happened at the Olympic Club in 1966. Arnold Palmer, the king, was at the absolute height of his fame. He desperately wanted to win his national championship, and with 9 holes left in the final round, it seemed like destiny. Palmer held a 7-stroke lead over Casper. The press had already moved on from who will win to whether Palmer could beat Ben Hogan's 72-hole open scoring record. What happened next became one of the most famous turnarounds in golf history. It was Palmer's Waterloo, one of the great debacles of modern times. While Palmer stumbled to a 39 on the back nine, Casper played with serene assurance. He carded a brilliant 32. Palmer's lead evaporated with bogeys on 10, 13, 15, 16, and 17. When Casper birdied the 15th, the tide had completely turned. The two men finished tied at 278. The 18-hole Monday playoff should have been a formality for Palmer. He took a two-stroke lead at the turn, but Casper was relentless. He played the back 9 and 3 under par to shoot 69, cruising past Palmer, who shot 73 for a 4-stroke victory. In total, Casper played 4 of his 5 rounds at that United States Open in the 60s, a monumental achievement. But here's what reveals Billy Casper's true character. As the two men walked off the 18th green after the playoff, Casper put his hand on Palmer's shoulder and said, "Arnold, I'm sorry." Years later, he still thought about it. He still believed Palmer should have won the Open. This wasn't false modesty. It was genuine empathy from a gentleman who understood what his victory had cost the game's greatest hero. Paradoxically, his greatest triumph may have cemented his underrated status. For Arnie's army, Casper became the villain who crushed the confidence of golf's greatest hero. The media narrative then and now focuses on Palmer's collapse rather than Casper's victory. By winning, Casper became the antagonist who denied the hero his destiny. It made it commercially convenient to exclude him from the era's pantheon. But Palmer himself never forgot the respect Casper showed that day. Now let's talk about Gary Player, the Black Knight, the third pillar of the Big Three. A direct comparison reveals just how flawed the metrics of greatness really were. Player's status is unassailable. 9 major championships, career Grand Slam, 159 international victories, global ambassador for the game. But here's the thing. Within the confines of the PGA Tour, where these men competed head-to-head most often, the numbers tell a completely different story. Gary Player won 24 total PGA Tour events in his career. Billy Casper won 51. That 51 to 24 win gap highlights a fundamental bias in how greatness was measured. Player's legacy is major-centric, Casper's is tour-centric. So who was really more dominant during that era? Let's look at the peak years of the Big Three narrative. From 1964 to 1970, when all these players were at or near their peaks, Billy Casper won 27 PGA Tour events. In that same period, Arnold Palmer and Gary Player combined won 21. Think about that for a moment. The narrative said there were 3 untouchable players defining an era. Palmer with his charisma and aggressive style. Player with his fitness obsession and international success. Nicklaus with his power and precision. They were packaged, promoted, and sold as golf's holy trinity. Meanwhile, Casper was quietly beating them week after week, month after month, year after year. The relationship between Casper and Player was built on mutual respect, even if the world didn't see them as equals. They pushed each other's limits in ways that didn't always make headlines. Player had the majors, Casper had the consistency. Both were relentless professionals who understood that greatness meant showing up every single week and performing at the highest level. The Big Three was a marketing creation, but the competition was very real. And in that competition, measured by pure tour victories, Casper wasn't just Player's equal. He was his superior. One man. 27 wins, 2 legends of the Big Three, 21 wins combined. This single statistic proves that while the Big Three owned the headlines, Billy Casper owned the tour. He just didn't own the marketing campaign that turned those 3 names into a brand. Because the Big Three wasn't really about golf. It was about Mark McCormick and the dawn of sports marketing. The only reason Casper wasn't included is that McCormick represented the other 3 and not Billy. But there was one player who saw through all the marketing noise. One player who knew exactly how dangerous Billy Casper really was. And that player was Jack Nicklaus. The ultimate validation of Casper's talent comes from the man widely considered the greatest player of all time. Nicklaus offered what may be the ultimate professional compliment. Billy Casper was the player he feared the most. I have said many times that during my career, when I looked up at a leaderboard, I wasn't just looking to see where a Palmer or a Player or a Lee Trevino was, Nicklaus stated. I was also checking to see where Billy Casper was. Nicklaus's reasoning was simple and devastating. Billy had tremendous confidence. You knew when you played against Billy Casper, Billy would not beat himself. This fear was statistically justified. In that same 1964 to 1970 window, Casper won 27 PGA Tour events to Nicklaus's 25. Casper's 1970 Masters victory, secured in a playoff, capped this period of quiet dominance. Nicklaus, the greatest power player the game had ever seen, could be neutralized by Casper's bulletproof game, built on moxie, creative shot making, and clever golf course management. All backed by the greatest putter on earth. Casper was the one player Nicklaus could not intimidate. This is proven by Casper's 5 Varden trophies for lowest scoring average, an award for season-long consistency that Nicklaus remarkably never won. Nicklaus's fear of Palmer was a battle of power. His fear of Casper was a fear of finesse and perfection, and that fear was completely justified. So where did Billy Casper's 51 victories place him in golf history? Right behind one of the greatest names ever to play the game, Sam Snead. The all-time PGA Tour wins list situates Casper firmly in the pantheon. Sam Snead and Tiger Woods tied at 82, Jack Nicklaus at 73, Ben Hogan at 64, Arnold Palmer at 62, Byron Nelson at 52, and Billy Casper at 51. 7th on the all-time list. But that simple 7th place ranking undersells the achievement. Casper's 51 wins earned between 1956 and 1975 came during arguably the single most competitive period in golf history. This was the era of extraordinary growth in television coverage and depth of competition. Unlike winners from earlier eras, Casper had to face Palmer, Nicklaus, Snead, Middlecoff, Player, and Lee Trevino when they were all at or near their peaks. His 51 victories, earned against every other name on that list, are among the hardest won in the history of the sport. Sam Snead represented the measuring stick for true greatness, one of the few names above Casper on the all-time list, and competing in Snead's twilight era only legitimized Casper's achievements further. To stand beside such legends, to earn their respect, that was the benchmark Casper measured himself against, and he more than met it, which brings us to the final name, Lee Trevino, the fellow outsider, the other man who challenged the Big Three myth. During the peak of the Big Three era, Billy Casper and Lee Trevino emerged as the two great outsiders who challenged the established narrative. Both were common men, not products of the traditional country club system. Nicklaus himself acknowledged this, grouping them as the key threats he looked for on a leaderboard. The respect was mutual. Trevino modeled his practice around Billy Casper, trying to outwork him. Together, Casper with 3 majors and 51 wins, and Trevino with 6 majors and 29 wins, represented a two-pronged disruption of the Big Three myth. But they did it in opposite ways. Trevino was the personality disruptor, the merry Mex, self-taught, yapping constantly. He took the game out of the country club boardroom and put it in the parking lot. His charisma and humor made him a media darling, impossible to ignore. Casper was the statistical disruptor, quiet, self-contained, a gentleman who simply won and won and won again. Because Trevino was loud, his legacy, despite 22 fewer PGA Tour wins, is less often cited as underrated. Because Casper was quiet, his 51 wins were more easily dismissed by those focused on the spectacle. But Trevino knew the truth. He knew that behind the quiet demeanor was a work ethic he could only hope to match. Two outsiders, two different approaches, one shared mission, proving that greatness didn't require a marketing campaign or a country club pedigree, just incredible skill and relentless determination. So what's the final measure of Billy Casper? 51 PGA Tour victories, 3 major championships, 5 Vardon trophies, 2 PGA Player of the Year awards. But perhaps his greatest achievement came in team competition. He was a member of 8 United States Ryder Cup teams and captained the 1979 squad. In his 8 appearances as a player, he amassed 23.5 points, which remains the most points ever collected by an American player in the history of the event. This record stands as the ultimate testament to his reliability and serene assurance under the most intense pressure. To say Billy Casper was merely a victim of the Big Three marketing is to miss the fundamental truth of his life. He wasn't defined by his exclusion from a marketing campaign. He was defined by his personal choices. Those who knew him described him as a kind man with a joyful heart, a tremendous husband and father. He and his wife Shirley had 11 children, many of whom were adopted. At the time of his death in 2015, he had 71 grandchildren. His life was profoundly altered by his conversion to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in 1966, the very year of his greatest professional triumph at the United States Open. He devoted himself to charitable work, primarily through the Billy Casper Youth Foundation. He never sought the attention. His underrated status wasn't something done to him. It was the byproduct of his conscious choice to prioritize faith and family over fame. He achieved 51 wins, 3 majors, earned the fear and respect of Jack Nicklaus, then leveraged that success to build a major golf course management business, and more importantly, a massive, loving family. Maybe history called him underrated. Maybe the marketing machine left him out of the Big Three. But to Ben Hogan, he was the protege who mastered the doctrine. To Kerry Middlecoff, he was the next generation rising. To Arnold Palmer, he was the rival who showed grace in victory. To Gary Player, he was the peer who quietly dominated. To Jack Nicklaus, he was the man to fear most. To Sam Snead, he was the name right behind him on the all-time list. And to Lee Trevino, he was the fellow outsider who proved greatness comes in many forms. Billy Casper didn't need to be in the Big Three. His legacy, one of quiet dominance, peerless integrity, and profound personal fulfillment, is complete, and it's extraordinary. So here's my question for you. Who do you think is the most underrated golfer of all time? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the life of Billy Casper, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. We've got more out-of-bounds stories about the legends who shaped the game coming your way. Thanks for watching.